Be careful when you make your wish, for your intention will be reflected in how it is fulfilled. Now, what can I do for you? Today on the Comic Book Report, 8 Billion Genies by Soule and Browne. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. Today I'm coming back with another comic book review. This time we're going to be looking at an oversized hardcover edition from Image Comics. That's right, I'm finally doing my review for 8 Billion Genies. This is a book that's been on my radar for some time. I remember when these single issues were coming out, there was such a buzz for this series, and I knew eventually I was hoping to read it. And, well, here we are. Before we jump into today's review, though, I do want to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to it in this video's description, and if you see something there you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate code or link to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now on with the show. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Soule and illustrated by Browne. The comics in this volume were published by Image Comics beginning in 2022. The volume itself collects 8 Billion Genies, issues 1 through 8. And finally, this oversized hardcover edition has nice glossy print paper stock, what looks like possibly a sewn binding with a little bit of glue, and a total of 246 pages. At this time, I'd like to issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that oversized hardcover from Image Comics. Really nice design. I don't know if my camera's picking it up quite as well as it actually looks in person. The outside cover here, the part that says 8 Billion Genies, that kind of cloud, is really shiny in the light. It kind of reflects and sparkles, and it's pretty jaw-dropping. I really love the effect of the cover of this book. It's just absolutely striking. As far as the spine goes, it is kind of a flat, flush spine, which I really like to see. There is no dust jacket with this hardcover collection, and in many ways it matches hardcover collections from Image I currently have, like Skyward and Firepower. Looks really great on a bookcase. Really nice design here, no complaints. And as we make our way to the back cover as well, we have some great art of some of the genies, a little bit of a blurb or two, some pricing information, things like that. Overall, I think that this is a really good cover. I really enjoy it. I think it sells the book quite well. And while I generally love dust jackets, it is nice to see an oversized hardcover without them. Like I said, I have a couple of these from Image, and they look really sleek on the bookcase. Okay, and here's our quick look at the binding. Like I said, I think it might be sewn, but there is definitely a little bit of glue on this guy. I will say my binding is a bit tight, so there's a little bit in the gutter, but nothing too critical. I don't feel like I lost out on dialogue or anything like that. And overall, it definitely holds the pages together quite well. I really haven't had a problem from Image. Okay, and now that we've examined that binding, we can jump into this book proper, and I've been really eager to finally review this book. Like I said, I've been really curious about it ever since I heard about the single issues coming out. Being someone who reviews collected editions, I often hear buzz about series that are coming out in single issue, and I try to earmark them like, hey, follow up on this when it gets a collected edition. Anyway, this was really high on my list for an indie book, especially from Image. I had heard enough good reviews about it that I was just, plain curious. So I'm so happy I was able to check it out. Really enjoyed this book overall. I'll just say that right from the outset. I think that this is a very fun series. It collects all 8 issues of the series thus far. From my reading, this really does feel like a self-contained series, beginning, middle, and end, but I'm unclear if they're going to revisit this universe in some way in the future. But there is no volume number, and like I said, as far as I can tell, this is a standalone series, and wow, what a fun ride. After the title pages and things like that, we jump right into the first issue. Like my review of Skyward, this is a series that largely expands on a central premise that is very captivating. The central premise for 8 Billion Genies is that basically basically one day, out of the blue, these little kind of floating ghost-like looking creatures, who are of course the titular genies, show up to everyone on Earth in their native tongue and basically say, hello, I'm your genie. Everyone on Earth gets one wish. And it's really a fascinating premise. What would happen if everyone on Earth was able to make a wish just in the blink of an eye? And in this, we have what ensues. It makes instantly a kind of weird, dystopian, fantastical landscape across this series. And to see how everything plays out, I think it's just a really fun thought experiment given life. The characters are really rounded and interesting. The art from Browne is just jaw-dropping, and like I said, it's a really great hook, a really great pitch or central premise, and I think it was executed really well. As you've already seen as we flip through, every so often the issues will basically go to a page of what Earth looks like, and sometimes you can see the Earth itself physically transformed, but it'll show you what the Earth's population is and what the genie population is on Earth. You get these about every issue, and it's a great way to track what stage the world is at. We also have it, right when the genies show up, I think 8 seconds later, 8 minutes or hours later, something like that. Then it's like 8 decades later, what have you. Like, we have a flow of time throughout this series as well that I think was great. It really does span, like, I don't know, a millennia or so. Like, you'll see as you read through it, but it starts very small. Everyone kind of gathers in this local dive bar, and then everything just explodes out from there. At this dive bar, we basically have the dive owner, along with some just, local bar people. We have someone's son who's there to kind of find his alcoholic dad. We have kind of the band setting up for live music. We have some kind of travelers that are coming from a different country that are trying to find their way and they're lost. And a couple other miscellaneous people that are showing up in this bar. And in this bar is when everything goes down. And right away, the owner of the bar uses his wish without missing a beat and basically says something along the lines of, I wish that no other wishes outside the bar or inside the bar will affect anything, basically. So anything happening outside the bar itself is shielded and nothing will affect those inside it, and the bar becomes a kind of sanctuary. I really think this is interesting. Right away, this is so telling of the actual bar owner, because he has the foresight, or at least the kind of vigilance, that as soon as the situation arises, he's ready to go. And it's actually not before long that we find out that, like, in the bar there's almost like a bunker or kind of a reserve of food and kind of emergency supplies. It's almost like he's a doomsday kind of hoarder, preparer, packer kind of guy. Anyway, just really fascinating, and that's one of the first wishes we actually get to see. Some other wishes aren't as, wise, I would say. Like, there's a girl who's kind of in love with one of her bandmates who says, I wish he'll fall in love with me, but because he was in the bar, it doesn't affect him, and she loses her genie right away. So there's things like that. And meanwhile, outside in the world, we get little snippets of people are using their wishes in bombastic, outlandish, amazing ways, where the world itself is almost imploding right from the jump, and it's pretty just wild to see. I really like how they approach this premise here, though, Charles Soule and Ryan Browne. I think that it does make a lot of, like, just internal sense for the logic of this series. The genies basically collectively are kind of doing this by their own design, it feels like. So there's certain wishes that are kind of off the table, like things that impact anything too globally are kind of up to their discretion. Also, if people are, like, wishing the same thing, sometimes it'll cancel out. What do I mean by that? At one point in this book, someone wishes that the United States is the #1 superpower in the world, but basically every country in the world wishes that, so it kind of neutralizes, and everyone loses their wish and nothing really happens. So there's some things like that to, like, avoid redundancy, or to avoid things that have too much of a global impact that would kind of ruin the game or premise, so to speak. And I think some of that internal logic or genie rules just really help make this series feel a little bit more bulletproof in a way. I really like that. What's interesting too visually about these genies is that they adopt a couple of the physical characteristics of their person, and I think that was really fun too. There's definitely a universality to the genie design. They're kind of cartoony, simplistic. We still have that kind of, like, weird bluish color for the most part, which is fun. But I like that they have their own kind of identities and they kind of adopt some of the attributes of their person. At any rate, the series spins out, like I said, of this bar. We start to get to know some of the bar patrons. For example, the alcoholic dad whose son is there to visit. We kind of learned that they lost the mother in that family to, I think, some kind of disease, maybe a cancer or something. And so the father wishes that he had his mother back. And so she shows up. She's in the equation. And suddenly they're kind of a happy family, and he's turning away from the substances. But we find out that a lot of people have wishes like this, or they wish that they can meet celebrities or people who have passed on. So we have like Ernest Hemingway walk into this bar at some point. This is another aspect of the wishes where some people can become remnants or these kind of created people, but they're kind of temporary until the wish expires, or the wisher expires, I should say. So you have this family that's been restored, but it's kind of contingent upon this fact of if anything happens to the husband in this family, the wife is going to go too, because she's only there because of the husband's wish. So there's interesting just facets and wrinkles like that. We have this couple that is from some foreign country who they're trying to find this other location. We find out it's all because the wife is pregnant and they're hoping to make a life here in the United States and kind of establish themselves, but they owe money, or they're kind of being blackmailed or manipulated by this other sort of loan shark kind of guy. Anyway, the dad in this family, the husband, wishes that he has what he needs to survive the apocalypse, and he gets this like crazy battle armor, and he goes into this kind of wasteland outside. He's fighting vampires and T-Rexes and all sorts of things that, has happened in the world. We have the son as well, trying to find a place for his family to go. This is the son that has the alcoholic dad, and he wishes he's basically a superhero, and he gets drafted into like this superhero league, and we get to see that kind of go poorly. There is a kind of dystopian, almost like monkey paw wish nature to some of this. I think a lot of the wishes are kind of great, but another wrinkle to the design of this is that the intentionality of how they wished it will play a fact into how the wish is granted. I think that was really cool too, because you can have someone wish something and then it kind of tailors it to what their real intention or their heart was for it. Anyway, so there are people that do this, and slowly but surely a lot of our cast has used their wishes, but there are some that still harbor their and hold on to their wishes, and I think that that's interesting too. And you can start to see, as we get to know more characters, we start to branch out into these bigger communities, and we start to see that after that initial wave of wishers, there's some people that are really just harboring theirs, not knowing how long it's going to last or how long they'll live and when they'll need it. They explore this idea that the longer you hold on to your wish, sometimes you can become paralyzed and you'll never make the wish, because you just get too in your head about what can I wish for, what am I going to lose out on, or what have you. And that plagues a couple of the characters in this, and we have some really tense moments there that is kind of fun. But anyway, this story does expand. We basically have this revelation, maybe in the first third of the book, maybe, halfway, probably the end of that first act. We have it revealed that the bar owner is actually a genie himself, or he was a genie. And this is where we get some more lore building. We kind of understand that every so often, when the world's population hits 8 billion, they release the genies into the world, and they kind of population control. By the end of the genies, everything kind of dwindles down humanity, and you start fresh. Because inevitably, these wishers kind of destroy each other, or the last person that wishes usually wishes for everything to kind of reset or whatever. You find out that the last genie, every time this happens, gets the chance to become kind of human and live among them. And so that's who the bar owner is. That's how he had the foresight to do this. He's been around for thousands of years. And we get more backstory with that as we go, especially in the final issue. But I think that was like just really fun. What a cool turn. It makes the bartender character make a lot more sense. And we have this kind of inkling that he's orchestrated this and he's planned for this upcoming genie wave, and he's hopeful for some of the patrons of his bar to maybe be the last wisher and to maybe break the cycle, or we'll see, But after that's revealed, and because of a couple other things happening, we have pretty much everyone in the bar eventually branch out and make their way out of the bar. Like, we have the family, we have that superhero kid kind of becoming jaded and having to deal with a lot of poor things, but he's ultimately able to find a community, and he moves his family. We have the foreign family have the birth of their daughter and also find kind of a refuge or community. There's this whole thing there where there's basically rules on that community where you have to take the genie from the kid, or the kid can't wish for the genie while they're underage, and that creates this whole kind of teen rebellion in that village or kind of community, so to speak. We have some other characters like the band basically wanting to pursue their aspirational dreams of being like an incredible band, and that trio is kind of formed. And anyway, so there's a lot more characters too that I'm not even mentioning everyone. Just enough to say, ultimately, the people in the bar who we get to know ultimately branch out and fill the world. And from this point, as we go issue to issue, we get to see the human population and genie population dwindle. We get to see the world really evolve and change over time. We get to see kind of, I'm going to call them antagonists. Like we find this guy that basically is harboring all these people's genies, and his wish was that people believe in him. And so people kind of surrender over their genies, and he's become like a superpower. We also have these kind of lawyer-centric corporation leaders kind of amassing genies as well, and there's this huge like genie face-off war. And that dwindles a lot of the genie population as well. But yeah, just some fascinating stuff. And this is really a character piece at this point. Like I said, it all revolves around that central premise, but we do get to really start caring for these characters. And because we pass so much time in this series, you get to see these characters grow and really live and mature and ultimately, in many cases, pass away. And we get to see kind of the arc of these wishes come to fruition over time. And there is something really beautiful about how this whole thing is orchestrated. I think it's a really interesting commentary on kind of the human condition. It's like the ultimate wish fulfillment fantasy series in many ways, and I just really enjoyed reading it. Ultimately, everything in the series resolves hundreds of years after that first incident, and we have one of the original patrons at the bar return and meet up with that genie guy, the bartender, and we have the daughter of that foreign couple who's now older and using the Iron Man armor and is kind of immortal herself, kind of meeting at this bar at the end of the world. They're the last two genie kind of wisher people, and ultimately one of them gets the final wish, and it's so like pure and amazing that it kind of breaks the cycle, and it's like this perfect, beautiful, happy ending. And that's really the series. Like I said, there's a lot more in here, a lot of twists and turns, but that's it. At the back of the book, we get some great variant cover art, kind of galleries, and a really cool behind-the-scenes kind of interview essay that goes into the process of these creators, how they collaborated, and how they came up with the ideas. And I think that this was a really fun kind of behind-the-scenes, a couple other extras in here, but really, really good stuff. I love the idea they introduced is that they were trying to think of premises that were inherently flawed in the way that they couldn't be executed, and then from that, how can you make it work? And honestly, that's what this series feels like. It doesn't feel like it should work, and yet it does. And the art throughout it from Browne, I haven't touched on it enough, but it has this kind of animated cartoon quality, but it's also very detailed and just beautiful. There's kind of a depth to this animation that is just absolutely astounding to me. Really fun stuff. A really fascinating series that plays with ideas of fantasy. It's character study at its core as well. This is just a really effective series. I know Charles Soule, I've been a fan of him. I've read his Daredevil run. I know I've really enjoyed what he did with some of the Star Wars stuff I've been able to read from him. But I'm just finding more and more from Charles Soule that I like. I know he co-writes with Scott Snyder for Undiscovered Country, another fantastic Image series. But 8 Billion Genies, a really great self-contained run here. Absolutely adored it. And now all that's left is to give it a grade. For an astoundingly great premise that is surprisingly well executed, along with just gorgeous artwork throughout, The Comic Book Report is happy to give 8 Billion Genies, the hardcover edition, an A-. This is easily one of my favorite Image series I've had the pleasure of reading recently. The edition itself is beautiful, love the oversized artwork, there's really a lot of care that went into this book. An 8-issue series, it reads really breezy, and it's just a ton of fun. I think it's really accessible to a huge, broad audience. Of course, it's new reader friendly, and if you're looking to read something that's outside of the big two and kind of that superhero genre, this might be up your alley. Definitely recommend 8 Billion Genies. But let me know what you think in the comments, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video a like, that comment we talked about, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks everyone, have a good one.